Okay, I guess it's probably time to get started. Once again, this is Dave Manell. I'm a Director of Product Development here at Accountants World. Today I'm going to be going over financial statement customization. We have a few new features and a few things have changed in the way we handle them. So I'm going to give you tips on that. And at the very end, I'm just going to show a couple of things that are upcoming. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing that I want to point out is for the financial statement customization, one important thing is getting a good setup right from the start. And so if you're setting up a brand new client, you can use our industry specific templates. And what we've done is we've gone out and we've developed 30 different industry specific chart of account templates. And when you use those chart of account templates, the group codes are already built in for you, so the financials are easy for you to configure right out of the box. You don't have to add any new group codes. Accounts are already grouped into the proper codes for you, and then if you add a new account, you can take care of it. So that is one of the options here when you're first setting up. If you want to see the templates, what you would do is you go to Resources, Support Documents, and you go down to Chart of Accounts, click on the Chart of Accounts button, and that's going to pull up an Excel file, and in that file you can see all of the accounts we have set up for the various industries. And a tip is that if you start with one of our predetermined Chart of Accounts, you can then customize it a little bit to meet your needs, and then on any new clients that you set up, you'll be able to copy that chart of accounts along with all of the formatting to your new clients when you set them up. So here is how you would copy from an existing client, just once again right in the same screen where you're setting up the chart of accounts, where before I did the industry templates. Here you would select copy from specific client. You select which one, you select which one you want to copy from. When you do that copy, you're going to have the all of the group codes are going to be copied, the custom formatting is going to be copied, and the preferences are going to be copied. Another thing, just as an aside, really has nothing to do with financial statements, but if you're doing like if you have a few customers in the same business, they may have a lot of common vendors. So if you copy vendors, you can start off with the same group of vendors, and you could also copy products and start off with the same group of products. So that's how you would copy from an existing client. And either copying from an existing client or using our standard templates gives you like a head start on formatting financial statements. So here's a new feature that we've added. So let's say that you added, you started off with one of our templates, but now you're adding a new account. See, in this case, I wanted to add an account here, Sprockets. So I clicked on Add Account. I enter the various information. And when I get down here, I can also say right now when I'm adding it, which group code I want it to be assigned with. So that makes it a lot easier. Whereas before, if you added a new account, you would have to go into the Customize in order to do it. So now right when you're adding the account, you can do it. So one thing I do want to stress right out of the box, without really doing anything, we have very good professional looking financial statements, but with just a tiny bit of work, you can customize them in several different ways to fit what you want to show. So the first thing I really want to show on the customization is the print preferences. This is the easiest way to customize a financial statement. because all you have to do here is just come in and click a few buttons. So maybe I wanted to have a line across the top of the page and a line by the footer. And maybe I wanted to capitalize all the letters in the class descriptions. And maybe I wanted to show percent of sales. So just by coming in and clicking those few buttons, takes a minute or so, you can get a different looking financial statement. So you see here's a line, you got the percents over here. If I showed the whole page, you would see at the bottom, you see how the totals and the class descriptions are all in all caps. Just as an aside, a little correction that we've done recently is if the percent is less than 1/100th of a percent, it used to be blank. Now we'll print .00 for you, which looks a little bit better, I think. So some of the other print preferences that we have, first under the general options, is we have the one for the separate column for totals. Now this can only be done when you're doing a single period financial statement, because you can't have, it just doesn't format right with having multiple years and the multiple columns. So that would give you this this look. Sorry, I had a call that came in. Some of the other options that you have here is a firm logo, and the firm logo will be on the accountant's report, and it's nowhere on the actual financial statements. I showed the capitalizing all letters of the class descriptions. You can choose to capitalize just the first letter. You can also have it print exactly the way that it's written in the class description area, which I'll go into later. This is the round amount to whole dollars. You select which account you want to round to. And you can also choose to combine sub-accounts or to list sub-accounts. Now the next thing I want to do is to go into the balance sheet and income statement preferences. So one is if you want to show the retained earnings as a part of the balance sheet. It's a very simple thing to do there. You can also have, like if you have a long balance sheet, you can choose to have the page break come before the liabilities. You can choose to have a variance show on the comparative statements. You can choose to show percent of assets, which isn't too common on financial statements, whereas percent of sales is very common. For income statement, we have pretty much the same things. You can choose to have the retained earnings show there. You can choose to have a page break before expenses. You can show the variances, and you can also show the percent of sales. Now there is one little tip on the percent of sales. Sometimes people wonder, well, how come the percent of sales isn't printing for me? And when we calculate percent of sales, we take total category of sales. So if you have 3 different sales accounts, we take the total of the category called sales to be the 100%. So you have to identify accounts as sales. So if the percentage of sales is blank, what you need to do is you have to go to the various accounts. Like in this one, I went to Sprockets, it was blank, and I changed and I made sure I assigned the group code, and also I would assign the category code to be sales revenue. A new screen that we've added is the category list screen. This is another screen where you could see if you didn't have all your accounts set up right as far as the category for sales. So if you go to the category list screen, it'll be a listing of all the various categories. Now in this case I'm talking about sales revenue, but there's other categories that are also important for handling in the program. So these are all the various categories. I'm not really going into what they do at this point, but the ones that really are typically important are the cash categories, because that'll make for the offset accounts. The sales revenue, which I just pointed out. Accounts receivable is important, and also accounts payable. And suspense account. So there's a lot of different things here we can use. It's not really my point here to show, except that we do have a new screen which makes it easy for you to assign the categories and also to see if any are unassigned. So now let's move back to the preferences. The title and the footer, this is very straightforward. You come to a screen. If you want something entered differently in the title or the footer, you just go to the area and change it. And you also have a second line to do it. So maybe you want, instead of income statement, you want statement of operations or something. So you would just come here and change the printing. Class descriptions. Now we have made one enhancement on this screen. Now basically what you do is you can come in here and you can change the class description to anything you want it to be. But the enhancement that we made here is you used to not have the ability to order the various classes. They just always printed out in a predetermined order. And what we've done is with the expense classes now, only the expense classes, you're able to change the order on those. So you just come over here and you enter the print order that you would want it to be. You can never make one of the expense classes print before revenue or something of that nature. It's only amongst themselves, the expenses. A little tip is we have 3 additional classes for expenses. We have miscellaneous 1, miscellaneous 2, and miscellaneous 3. So you can rename them according to whatever class names you want. So in this case, I set up one called widget expenses. Occasionally somebody needs more than 3 classes, but typically when they do, they won't be using all of these other classes. So they may not be using selling expenses or rental expenses. So the solution then is to rename any of the unused classes. So for example, you could call rental expenses whatever name you needed it to be. And as I pointed out, the new feature is you can now assign print order to expense classes. Financial fonts. So you have the ability to change the font that the financials print in. You can change the size. You can choose if you want things to be in bold and also italic. You can choose to have negatives print out in red. If you want to see what it looks like, you can click on the view and get a quick look at what that font appears like. And if you fool around but then you want to go back to where you were to begin with, you just click on Restore Defaults. Now one thing to remember is in our headings up there where you have the client name and the report name, that's fixed in size. So if you're resizing fonts, you should always print a test statement because we only have a certain amount of room up there. So you can't make a client name to be a 40-point font or something because it just won't fit properly. Another little tip is if you ever have an income statement or a balance sheet and it doesn't quite fit on the page, you can try lowering the detail font size. And also, as I mentioned before, you can use the option for page break before liabilities or expenses. So that's the easy part, and now I'm going to get into the customization, which is also fairly easy, but it's more in depth and it gives you a lot more power also. So before we really get started though, let me give you a couple of definitions. One is a format, and a format is the name you give to a complete set of group and style definitions for both your balance sheet and or your income statement. A group is a set of related accounts to which you apply a style. So a group would be like if you have 5 different insurance accounts, you group them all under something called insurance. And a style is a setting you can apply to either a group or a class of accounts. And I'm going to go into how you do all of these in a few minutes. So the first step in customization, if you didn't start off with pre-customized using the setting up the chart of accounts, would be you have the ability to copy from here from an existing client. And another thing you have is you can either copy the defaults or you can copy from other clients. So here I've come in, now I'm into the customization screen, and here's how you assign the accounts. It's a lot quicker and easier than it used to be. And the way that we work it is when you come into the screen, anything that hasn't been assigned to a group will be at the top of that class. So everything down from this area that's in operating revenue already has a group assigned, but these 4 don't have a group. So in order to assign them, they're right at the top. They're easy to find and assign. When you go to assign a group, the various groups that you can assign it to will be based upon the type and the class. So you don't have to always be scrolling through a whole bunch of different groups. You only see the ones that apply for that particular account. And I'm going to go into style a little bit more later, but you do it from the same screen. From here, you choose one of the various styles. We have 5 or 6 different ones. Combine into one line, combine with printing a supplemental schedule, list with subtotal, list with heading and subtotal. And we also have where you do the print order. So you come here and you just enter the print order. Print order only determines the order within that particular class. So I can't make something that's in operating expenses move ahead of something that's in operating income. So it changes its position in that class. Okay, so here I have some setup here. I have sales of widgets, sales of gadgets, sales miscellaneous, and they're all set up now to combine into one line. And 25 was the print order. As soon as you were to change anything, like if I were to change from combine into list, or if I were to change the print order to be 20, it changes it for everything within that group. So you don't have to, if you have 10 items within a group, you don't have to go in and change it on each and every one. The next thing is adding a format. So you would click on add, and it brings you to this screen. First, you specify what the name is of the format. And then you have a couple of options. One is we already have a group of default groups, or you can copy from an existing format. So in this case, I'm looking at to copy from combined. So I click on the drop down, and then I click on combined. And now my webinar format came from that one before. Now a new feature that we've added is, it used to be that once you had a group, like if you had a group called miscellaneous, all the accounts that were in the group called miscellaneous were the same in each format. So you couldn't have maybe 3 accounts as miscellaneous in one group and in a different format have that group have different accounts in it. And we have changed that. So here, when I'm coming in from the one that I copied it from, I have all of these are set up as miscellaneous, but I want to now set up the office equipment ones. I want a little more detail for my financials I'm giving out. So I want to assign them to a different group in this particular format. So all I would do is I come in, I will now change them all to be office expense. And once I go in and change them all, I have to go into each and every one to change them. But once I go in and change them all, I could then choose how I want them to print and also what the print order is. I only have to do that one time. And now when I print this format, webinar format, it'll print 2 groups, whereas before it would have been 1 big group for miscellaneous. And I can still easily switch back to that other group if I want to, that other format if I want to do it that way. So now you see they're all there, they're office expense. Now, what if you want to add a new group? How do you go about adding a new group? This add button is for adding a new format. That's not the button that you would use. You click on group codes. And when you click on group codes, it gives you the ability to either add a new group code, or you could also go on the drop down here and you could change the name of an existing group code. So in my case, I added a new code. I said what type of expense it was. I said which class I want it to go into. I specify the 3-digit group code, and I also give the name. And then I would simply click on save, and then going forward, it will always be there for me. Now, another new feature that we've added is the new group code screen. So what you can do in order to really see how you have the various groups set up is you go to the financials, you go to the drop down, click on group codes, and it brings up this new screen, and this will be a screen with all of the various codes you have, groups that you have. You have different ways you can filter within here. I could choose to filter by which group, by which format, or I could have it to list all of the ones. And I could also have it to list groups that don't have any accounts assigned to them yet. So that's a good feature. When you're on the screen, it's easy for you to filter and see what you want to be working with. Another thing that you have on this screen is the ability to see what makes up that group. So if I click on this line, operating expenses, insurance, a little window will pop up, and it'll give me a listing of every account number, and name that's in that group. It'll give me the group code, the name of the group, the account type, and also the class that it's in. So it makes it's pretty easy to come in and really see how you've done the grouping. Now we used to have, and we do still have, the ability to print out just a list of your group codes. And the way to do that is you go to Reports, Company Reports, Group Codes, and then when you go to print it, you'll get a listing of all the group codes. And this report is nice. You can keep it on the side, but what it doesn't have that new screen has is a listing of all the accounts that make up each group. Now, the group styles. I kind of touched on it before, and this is a little bit better description of what the different styles are. One is combine into one line. This is where you can print the entire group on one line. Lots of times when you're doing a financial statement, maybe if it's for the bank or something, the bank doesn't care about how the sales is broken out. They just want a total number of total sales. Whereas if you're giving a financial statement to management, they probably are more interested in the various sales accounts. So that's why this is very good. You can set up one type of format where they're all combined. It's easy. Another one where you can have everything listed out for the various types of uses. So that's the combine into one line. Combine and print supporting schedule, exactly the same as combine, but it also prints a supporting schedule following the report. List, of course, prints each account on one line. And list with subtotal and or heading, it's the same, but it also prints the group description as a heading and also has a subtotal for the group if you choose it. So here's where you would go to assign the styles. You're still in that same customized screen that I was showing you before. And in this case, we see that the group is set up as in this. I'm looking just as an insurance, and under group style, I have list. I have a print order in there also. And when I print it out, it will list all of the insurance accounts. In this case, I just had 2, but if I chose combine and print schedule, it would print it out this way. And now insurance is just on one line, 41,500, and there was also a supplemental schedule that came after the income statement. I'm going to show you also list with heading and subtotal. Not really my favorite, although some people do like it. So, you know, there's a lot of differences in what people are interested in and a lot of different ways people want to display the financials. So this is how that one would look. It comes out, it has a little heading here, has a subtotal for the insurance, and then it goes in with the rest of the total there. So it's pretty easy to assign the styles, to assign accounts to groups, to set up different formats. And then once you have one set up, as I pointed out before, it's easy to copy it to others. So here's a recap of what I've shown so far for customization. By setting the preferences to your liking, you already have significant control very easily over the appearance of your financial statements right out of the box. But if you need to meet the needs of different recipients, you can customize your financial statements to do the following things. You can combine multiple account balances on a single line. You can print the balances individually, or you can use various combinations. You can have some that are combined in a group, others that you want to print the details, etc. You can print a subtotal on your main report and the details on a supporting schedule. You can control the sequence in which the accounts print on your statements. You can customize the headings for all the grouped accounts on your statements. You can tailor the financials for the needs of specific businesses. And you can tailor your financials for the needs of different recipients, kind of like what I was talking about before. Maybe one for your client, one for yourself, a different set for partners or shareholders or a bank, investors, whatever the group might be. And you can easily copy customized settings from one client to another. So, I mean, that's how you set up the custom formats, but how do you then use them? So the first thing you do is when you go to print financial statements, you'll see I have something here called accounts and customs. There's nothing over here. And every now and then we get a call on this, so I'm going to just point it out. All you need to do is click on custom, and then a little drop down for the various formats will appear. One other thing I want to just point out real quick while I'm here, you have a complete set of financials that you can print out in one pass. You can have the cover sheet, the table of contents, the accountant's report or the letters. They're all SAS compliant. Balance sheet, income statement, statement of cash flow, and statement of retained earnings. All these things can be printed out in one easy pass for the clients. And you also have the ability, if you go to firm administration, you can set up, if you want, to email the financials to the clients automatically when you close a period or close a year. So that's an easier way to deliver them to the customers. Another thing is you can set up to automatically put them into the cloud cabinet, which I prefer because it's more secure than email. And then the client can access them from there. And plus the client always has them where they can pull them up at any time in the future when they need them. So instead of calling you saying, hey, I lost last year's March income statement or something, they can go into the cloud cabinet and pull it up, assuming that you give them the rights to that folder, because you do have control over what they can and cannot see in the cloud cabinet. And also you have control over what clients can or cannot do in accounting power too. So after you select custom, you can then choose which of the formats you want to use to print. And simply by changing between these, it's very easy then to change the financials that you're giving out to the clients. Now, the various printing options. I mean, they're kind of straightforward. As you see, we have current period, year-to-date, quarterly, current and year-to-date, and also quarter and year-to-date. So those are pretty straightforward, but there are a few other tips that you need to know when you're using this screen. One is the comparative statements. You click the box for comparative, and then you select the number of years. And what the number of years is, it's the current year plus the number of years. So if I say I want a comparative and I put number of years 2 here, I'm really getting 3 years worth of detail. I get the current year plus the 2 prior years. And you have the same ability under the income statement, and you can include up to 4 prior years. Not that I'm going to be going into it right now, but if you're new with the system, but you want to be able to have financials for prior periods, if you go to trial balance and trial balance entry, there's easy screens there to just drop in the trial balance information from prior years. And you can set those up also for the 4 prior years. So once you select it, then you get a financial statement like this. Here's a balance sheet with the current year on this one was 16, and then 15 and 14. Now we also have a few different options for comparative under income statement. The balance sheet comparative is always just current to current. But when you're doing a comparative statement on the income statement, you have the ability to say period to period, quarter to quarter, year to date, consecutive periods. So if you want to print out, say, 3 periods in a row, April, May, and June, you can print 3 consecutive periods then. And you also have current and year to date, and then the 13 column. The 13 column is the one I want to show. It's a lot like the consecutive period, except it always comes to whatever the current period that you're selecting up here under the period that you're printing. So the 13 column is this one. Now in this case, I chose up to September. So you'll see individual columns for each month. Makes for good review and for trend analysis. And you also have the year-to-date totals. Now for departmental printing, we have a few different options, and we have one thing that's new, at least it's new in the last 5 or 6 months. The first option, combined, if you choose combined, all that really does is print it as if it's not a departmental statement. It combines them all together into a regular income statement, all the various departments. Now you have the ability to choose an individual department to print, although you can also choose, and this is what is new, all departments. And when you choose all departments, like in this case, it would print the balance sheet, it would print the income statement, first the one for the Sierra Nevada department, then the one for the Rocky Mountain department. When you have 2 departments, it's not really a major issue, but when you have like 10 or 15 departments Before, you would have to go in and print each departmental income statement separately, and that could take a lot of time. Now, if you have 10 departments, you can just print them all in one pass when you're printing the balance sheet and everything else. The other feature for departmental printing is the departmental column. So what the departmental column does is you click the box for a departmental column, and this will give you a list of all the departments side by side and also the total. A nice feature it has is you can come here and you can identify whatever was unassigned. So you know if there were a few transactions and somebody forgot to assign them to a particular department, you'll see it here and you can go in and do it. A better place to do this, and I'm going to touch on this screen later, is in the View Financials, because when you're on the View Financials screen, you'll not only see the unassigned amounts, but you'll be able to click on them and then assign them to the particular department that you wanted. But this is good too, that you print it out, you have it in front of you, you can kind of follow from there and follow through what you need to do. Nonprofit printing. Now what we do for nonprofits is there's a lot of specific things that need to be handled for printing and for titles and things like that. So once you set up a company as a nonprofit, right here, you select under entity type as nonprofit. This field here before would have said departments. Once you select it as a nonprofit, it becomes funds, and it sets up 3 specific funds that are typically the ones that are used in nonprofit accounting. And you can go and view them by going to funds. You'll see that there's unrestricted net assets, there's temporarily restricted net assets, and permanently restricted net assets. And it's not really what I'm going to be going into here, but when you're entering any transaction, whether it's a write-up transaction or a sales expense, a sales invoice or an expense to a vendor or a journal entry, you'll be able to identify which fund, the same as you would have if you were also doing departments, but you'll be able to identify which fund that transaction belongs in. The other thing we do is you'll notice in the preferences, under net income, we change the heading, so you don't have to come in and worry about changing the heading, to be change in net assets. We also, in the title and footer, we will change a couple of things. The main one that I want to show, the main one is the statement of activities and changes in net assets we put in there for you. Statement of financial position. And once again, if you want the title to be something different than what we put in, you can change it. So now that's basically what we do as far as setting up the nonprofits. When you go to print out a nonprofit, the retained earnings section is specially formatted so that it will reflect the various funds, and the income statement you have to select departmental column when you're printing it, and then it prints out with various columns for the different funds that you have set up. So that's the nonprofits. Now I'm going to go into formatting for cash flow statements. And it's pretty straightforward. Based upon the type and the class of the asset and also the category, which I kind of mentioned before, if you've set up the category, we will determine what area we believe that account belongs in on the cash flow statement. So we'll come up that accounts receivable will go into the total for a decrease, increase in accounts receivable. We go inventory, we know that it belongs in decrease, increase in inventories. But if you want to change any of these, sorry, you go to that particular one that you want to change. In this case, it's prepaid expenses I want to change. So you go there to that line, you click on the drop down, and it'll give you a whole list of various ones that you could choose to have it assigned to. As I said, we are pretty good on matching them up, but occasionally either you have a new account that just doesn't really fit in, or you may want to display it differently for your own needs. So you can come in here and you can choose exactly how the calculations are done for the cash flow statement. So that's the calculation part. You also have the ability to change the structure a little bit if you want to. And what you would do is you go to cash flow structure, click on that, a little pop-up window will come, and from in here what you can do is you can change the description. So if I didn't want it to say depreciation and amortization expense, I would come right in here, or I guess I wanted to show prepaid expenses because that's what I did before. I would come in here and I would change the description, and I could also change the print order that it would appear in on the cash flow statement. Now, the view financials. The view financials, they can be printed out, but when they get printed out, they're not quite the same as your regular financial statements. But the main use for the view financials is for reviewing purposes. And there's a few different options we have here, some that are not available elsewhere, although we are considering adding the date range. But you have a single period, you have a comparative year-to-date, and you also have the date range. So if you wanted to print out financials for a company in the retail business and you want it to be from the week before Thanksgiving to the day after Christmas, you can then see the income for that period. And you can then, after you get that, you can then compare it to the income from last year or something of that nature to see. In my case, I chose the comparative year-to-date, and what this does is it comes out, it prints each column month by month and gives you the year-to-date. It's really the same thing as that 13-column financial statement from before, except that now this gives you the ability to drill down. So if I'm interested in where did the number for widgets come from, I simply click on that line. This will pop up. It'll show me all the detail for that line. I could then click here and it would take me into the actual transaction. And the same thing would be true if I had chosen the departmental. If I'd chosen to list the departments, I'd be able to see that same financial statement I saw before, and I would have those unassigned accounts. I could click right on them and make the changes right there. Now, I'm pretty much done, but there are two things that are coming up very soon. We're hoping maybe around Memorial Day. And there's also some other little things, but I'm not going to mention them yet. But one is digital checks. Digital checks is a way that will allow you to be doing like a bill paying service for your clients. And when they use the digital checks, once a bill is approved to be paid, you click on digital checks, and I'm going to show you the screen in a minute, but you click on digital checks and an email will go to your client's vendor. And then the client's vendor, they can either print out that check and then deposit it. It's a PDF. They can go right to the bank and deposit it. Or if they choose, which is much easier, they can then enter their banking information, and then it will be automatically deposited into their account. This is a great time saver over writing out checks, mailing out checks, and other things. And it's also it's better for everyone as far as fees involved with accepting credit cards. So if you have clients that accept credit card, vendors, if your clients' vendors accept credit cards, they'll be happier to be paid this way because the fees will be much less. The other thing that we're adding, which is very important for restaurants, is the ability to have 13 4-week periods in a year, and then to have the 52, 53 week to make up for when you eventually end up losing 1 week. So here's quickly the way that it will be done. This is in our development, so it's not really finished yet, but for the 52 week, they're going to come here, they're going to click on change number of periods, or you're going to click there. One of the options will be for 13 periods, each 4 weeks. And you'll also have the ability to enter the book year begin and the book year end in case you're picking up the extra week. The year that you pick up the extra week is when you need the end. And the way that it will work, once you choose whatever beginning date you choose, and typically you're starting on a Monday, after 4 weeks later, it's going to go into the next period starting on a Monday. And then you'll have those 13 periods. So this is a big improvement for restaurant type businesses and a few other industries also. The digital checks, just to give a quick look of what it's going to be like, is you'll be on the banking screen or the check writing screen. In this case, I wrote out a check to someone, I entered the amount, and as long as I have an email address entered for this vendor, when I click on digital check, it'll send an email to them. As I said, they'll be able to either print out the check and take it down to the bank and deposit it, or they can enter their information to have the money go directly into their account. Now there will be a small per check fee on this, and as soon as this feature is fully functional, I'll have a webinar really showing the details of how to register for the digital checks, which is with a company called Checkbook.io, and all the various steps and exactly what it can do for you. Okay, that's it. Once again, I want to thank you for giving me the time to show you the program. As always, I like showing the program, I like showing the features, I like showing the different tips and everything, and I hope it was helpful for you. If you have any questions, any comments, you can email me at dmunnell, M-U-N-N-E-L-L, @accountantsworld.com, and I will get back to you, or I'll make sure someone else gets in touch with you. But usually I will be the one who will respond. So once again, thank you very much, and I guess that's it.